Yeah.
for
So
setting this up.
you have a personal interpreter. Yes.
Okay. That's the first time experiencing a personal interpreter.
Yeah.
What learning?
So that is, you will be able to actually say hi to Willie, but he cannot be, he's not audible in the English channel, meaning this is the
Right,
English channel. So
right.
even if you want to speak to him, or if you have to like basically hear him, you have to go to the under either there'll be a globe button in your screen. On your screen, you will find a globe button like
A
this.
globe button interpretation.
Yes,
Yes.
correct. So if you go there and you choose Chinese,
Chinese.
that's where you will meet Willie. And of course, you have
Wow.
to mute the original video, otherwise audio. Sorry, otherwise you will
Okay. I
hear both
see.
English and Chinese. Yeah. So
I see.
so
Wow.
whoever
I didn't
joins
know that
might
Zoom does
have a,
this.
yes, yeah. And it's simultaneous, so which means that it's live. As you
Oh,
speak, he's also translating at the same time. Yeah.
okay. Sounds good.
So, hi, Willie. Okay. So I think it's 3 o'clock. We just give 2 more minutes, and I think most people will be joining by then. And then slowly, over time, you will find more people joining us. But of course, we can't
Mhm.
wait for everyone to join. So we'll start
Sure.
with 2-3 minutes,
Okay.
and then slowly we find that more people join us as we go along. So yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, and for any questions, usually we will request them to put it in the chat, and then you can answer those at the end of the session. Or if you
Okay.
want to take in between as well, if you're free to do that.
All right. Shall I turn on my video?
It's up to you. Yeah, I think no one usually does like among the audience. So, but yes, if you want to share your video, it's up to you.
Okay.
Completely up to
Maybe
you.
at the start. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. Nice to meet you again.
I,
I think I saw you in April last. Yeah.
time flies.
Yeah.
I think Paul is thinking of doing this financial sector
That's right.
yeah UX strat in Singapore.
Yes. He is in touch with me to get the venue and to do all the this thing next time. It's in sometime he's planning sometime in February, or so February, March, I think he mentioned, because I asked him the time and he was saying that. Yeah.
Mm, okay,
Yeah.
pretty soon then. Nice. Within 6 months.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, I think we have quite a few people who's joined in, and also the live streaming is on already. I don't know, Harris has already switched it on. Uh, so, yeah. So, thanks everyone. Welcome to the session. Thanks, Simon, for doing this, sharing this. Especially because initially I had approached Simon after we had done a seminar together, and there was a different topic which I was discussing with him, but he mentioned jobs to be done, and I realized, yes, this is a topic which has not been covered, and this is something which is very interesting for everyone to understand and implement in their own, projects and in generally and in their work. So this is an interesting topic which can be covered. So thanks, Simon, for doing this, and thanks everyone for joining us today. For We have just a few reminders. Harris will share the slides. So generally, please do not record this session or take screenshots. That's a request from us. This session will anyway be recorded at our end. As you can see, is being recorded, and it will be shared on YouTube on our channel, or also on Design You, which is also again the YouTube thing. So that is something which we've got the consent from Simon for. So if you please keep your microphone muted and your camera function also turned off during the sharing session. If you have to unmute, please unmute it at the end of the session when we'll have the Q&A. If you have any questions, you can put it in the chat in the meantime. If you are listening to this session through the live streaming, then just feel free to send the question to Harris or to me or in the live streaming session. And what we do is we copy paste that question into this chat in Zoom so that Simon can answer your questions as well. So we have quite a few people who are joining us on the Lazada live stream, and those are all internal Lazadians. And then we also have the others who have joined us here. And as we go along, we will have more people joining us through Zoom. So yeah, so that's basically what we have. For any questions, put it into the chat. Please, of course, do not ask for any sensitive or confidential information, especially because Simon is from the banking BFSI sector. It's not the so no numbers will be shared. The other thing which some of you may be joining us, and is more if you're more comfortable listening to this session in Chinese, because some of our colleagues from China is also joining us. If you're more comfortable listening to Chinese, please join the Zoom session. You have the Zoom links, all of you, and then you can just go to the globe icon at the bottom or the more icon at the bottom, depends on which browser you are using, or which whether you are using a website or app. And then you will find the interpretation function. There's something called interpretation. Go to that function. You can choose Chinese, and please remember that if you have to mute the original video, audio. If you do not mute the original audio, you will listen to both Chinese and English, which is very confusing. So that's the way to listen to Chinese channel. And yes, that's basically what we have in terms of instructions. Let me also quickly introduce Simon for today's. So Simon is heading the digital experience studio at Great Eastern Life. And apart from overseeing the digital services design for consumers, corporates, and agencies, he also directs the growth of design practice in Great Eastern through the design ops. So one of the things which you have seen from the topic itself is that he is leading innovation in artificial intelligence and in other forms, which is like the topic which we are discussing today, which is jobs to be done, by identifying the use cases and developing AI-enabled solutions for Great Eastern. So welcome, Simon. Thanks again for doing this session. Over to you. Please feel free to share your screen. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Achita. I'm going to share my screen. While I do that, I just want to comment that I feel so pampered. Sanchita and Haris, you've been great hosts, inviting me and guiding me along this journey to have a successful event today. Thank you very much. Right. Screen. Okay. And let me just get this to presentation. Right. All right, Sanchita, can I just get a quick feedback from you guys if you're looking at the screen?
Yes, it's showing.
Okay, thank you. Jobs to be done. Yeah, so thanks for spending your afternoon with me. This is a topic which personally we are very invested in this topic. We want to do this well, pervasively in Great Eastern. However, as vocabulary goes, right, it is also subjected to different interpretations as this vocabulary on jobs to be done gets spread throughout the organization. And as a designer, right, we have this desire to instill certain level of clarity when we talk about jobs to be done, right? So I think this word, if it is not properly used, it could be misused, right? And the repercussions could be people say it is a jobs to be done, but actually we are just talking about product features. We're just talking about customer needs. We're talking about anything that's anti-jobs to be done. So that's the worst thing I want to happen in Great Eastern, which is why I kind of very passionate about this topic, take it upon myself to provide clarity, not just for Great Eastern, but also for you, right? So hopefully through the many literatures that are out there for jobs to be done, right? And this will be a simpler form for us to digest in this 1 hour. I just try to get the lights on. Give me a minute. Sorry for that. Smart building, the light saving mode goes on every time I don't move enough. All right, I just want to take us back a little bit to some Singapore transportation history. Okay, so for those who are in Singapore, I'm sure you can relate to this. Those who are not to worry, I'll bring us through. So a bit of the history, right? So when we first started, okay, and we look at transportation, in Singapore today, we have pervasively taxis, okay, we have buses, and we have what we call the mass rapid transit trains. We just call them MRT trains for short. Okay, they all do the same job, right? They bring us from point A to point B, okay? And we can see that we first started off with taxis, right? In 1971, we have about 200 of them. And we didn't just end off with taxi as a mode of public transport, right? To get us from point A to point B, right? So certainly taxis help us in many ways, right? To bring us around. But something was not enough, right? Something was insufficient. And there came buses 2 years later, okay? And very much about 14 years later, we see the MRT trains coming. So I just pondered upon this growth in our transportation capabilities in Singapore, right? Why is it that we didn't get more taxis, right? Why is it that we didn't just get more buses? Why is there actually a need for MRT trains to come? Okay, and you can see that although they've been introduced quite some time back, they are still available in Singapore today, right? They are sustained, they actually grow, right? In terms of the number of these transportation modes. So the thing is, right, which mode of transport do we actually hire to do this job, right? So we don't always take taxi, we can't do it anyway, but we typically take taxi in situations, right? When we're in a hurry, maybe after a hard day's work, then we just want to take a break from work and let a taxi bring me back to my doorstep. But I can't do that every day. It's too expensive, right? So in situations where I'm a bit more cost conscious, it is a routine travel, right? So every day, I go to work, I get off from work, I go home. It's routine, right? And sometimes after a hard day's work, I will also take a bus because for most buses in Singapore, it brings us to the doorstep, right? We may have to transit 1 or 2 buses, but it brings us to the doorstep. So I don't have to pay too much attention to getting off the right train stop if I'm taking a train, and then to go up the escalator, come down the escalator, there's a lot of movement. So I may hire a bus after a hard day's work, right? Or sometimes if I just do this routine travel and I'm cost conscious, right? I can choose to take an MRT train, right? So the thing is, the situations actually determine, okay, which mode of transport we will actually hire. So the situations then direct us in a way, right, to choose the mode of transport. So that is the first fundamental concept of jobs to be done, right? The situations play a part in how customers respond to the situation, right? What kind of solution I will actually go for to help me do the job. So the question is this, right? Will you actually be happy because you hired the most logical solution to get the job done? So suppose back to the taxi example, right? You need to go home fast, right? You need to get to an appointment fast. You take a taxi. Probably you can't be too cost conscious that day, right? And then you took a taxi, right, to get to your destination. So just because you reacted to that situation, right, you need to get to somewhere fast, and you took a taxi, does that make you happy? So that's the question, right? So the fact is, no, it all depends, right, on the criteria. So the criteria actually are some performance attributes that customers have themselves to evaluate the job, the product or service that they just hired to do the job, right? So they have a set of criteria. So this could be very obvious criteria. It could be something more innate to the customer. Okay, so back to the taxi, right? If you look at the taxi column, if I'm in a hurry, right, I would expect, right, the taxi to give me a 3-star kind of a speed service, right, compared to the rest of the modes. And after a hard day's work, I would think that it will be more comfortable than the bus, than the MRT train. Okay, but the thing is, would there be situations where speed is reduced, right? I expect a 3-star, but at the end, right, I get it is a peak hour traffic. I took a taxi, and then that 3-star, right, could easily become 2-star.
这里
right?
要看一下。
Yeah. So the 3-star can actually become a 2-star. Why? Because the taxi was caught in a jam. And the customer may be thinking, oh, if I were to take a MRT train, actually there is a higher predictability, and I know I will be there in 40 minutes instead of my expectation of taking a taxi, which will bring me there in 30 minutes. So supposed to be 10 minutes faster because of the jam, it is now taking longer than an MRT train. So when that happens, right, I am actually looking at the speed criteria. I'm actually dissatisfied. Okay, so the criteria is another aspect of jobs theory, which is really important for us to then determine, okay, whether a job is actually done well in the eyes of the customer. So if we understand this list of criteria, it does wonders, right, in the whole understanding of the jobs to be done. Okay, more about transport. Okay, we were at taxis, right? So taxis over 52 years have multiplied by 55 times. But there's this phenomenon, right, called private hire that happened in Singapore not too long ago, 2013, right? So about 10 years ago. So it started off with 500 private hire cars. So let me explain what these cars are. So this could be drivers, okay, who want a full-time driving profession. They can actually go to a car rental company to rent a private hire car, licensed under private hire car. And they can use it for Grab. For Singapore, we no longer have Uber, but we have things like Tada. We have Gojek. Okay, so they can actually use this private hiring service through the apps to actually provide this service for the customers. And the growth is like so fast. In 10 years' time, they have grown by 154 times. Okay, so today on the road, there are more private hire cars competing with taxis. In fact, because of the surge of demand in private hire cars by customers, a lot of the taxi drivers have migrated over to become private hire drivers. Okay, and there's also another phenomenon that has happened. Okay, in the same year, 2013, there is a car sharing service. So this is slightly different. So these are people who have a driving license themselves. Okay, but probably they don't own a car, but they need the cars for a few hours, right? So can be 3 hours, can be 6 hours. They just want to have the ability to have the car to offer them the flexibility to move around. So they can get to a car park that is near to their house. Okay, go to the car park where these designated lots are and pick up one of these cars that they book. Okay, so after using the car, they will then drive back to the car park and park it there again. So that's how car sharing works. It is also experiencing good growth, right? In the last 10 years, it has multiplied by 30. And my recent observation is that this car sharing pool is also on the rise in Singapore. Okay, so why is it that with the saturation of taxis, buses, and MRT trains, there are still room, right, for these disruptive entrants to come in, right? So let's do a bit of analysis. So let's take the taxi in comparison. For these private hire cars who are going through Grab, Gojek, and Tada, okay, they do the same job better, right? So in terms of speed, okay, it is faster to get a private hire car through one of these apps because you can book it through the app And most of the time, between 2 and 6 minutes, you get a ride. Compared to traditional taxi at that time, I'm talking about between 2013 to 2016. Taxis, they don't have a booking app yet, right? You have to actually go to the roadside and you have to try to hail down a taxi. Okay, so depending on your luck and the supply of taxis during peak hours or so, you may not actually get a taxi at all, right? So, but for these private hire cars, the consumer behaviors would be, I have a Tada app, I have a Gojek app, I have a Grab app. I can switch between these 3 apps and try to secure a ride. Okay, so in terms of pricing, it's also a lot lower, especially in terms of peak hours. There is a surcharge in these private hire cars, but most of the time it is lower than taxis, right? So in terms of price and speed, it is actually doing better. Okay, so for the car sharing, okay, so the car sharing in the third column, it is because although it is still using a car, it is actually handling new situations and new jobs. Okay, so that situation is, oh, I probably need a car for 3 hours. I trust my own driving because I'm going to ferry some of my young kids and I have old folks. I don't want to rush them into the taxi or the private hire car. I just want to take it slow. I want to have control of the situation, right? So, and the job, for instance, I may want to run errands, right? I want the flexibility to go to the supermarket first, followed by dropping off my kid to the tuition, and followed by doing this and that. Or I can change the sequence. I actually have that flexibility, right? So I use it to run errands for that 3 hours to 6 hours. Okay, and the criteria is ease of picking up. Is there a nearby car park where actually I have some of these car sharing service available, right, where I can easily access them? And also the ease of refueling. So what if I get into a car and the fuel level is very low, right? My intent is actually to just step on the gas and able to drive off the car. But if the fuel level is low, I need to go and top up the gas. So what is that procedure? Is it very difficult, very onerous? Do they refund me immediately, or can I just use one of their petrol cards without spending a cent on my own? Right. So those are the criteria. And today for the car sharing service, there's also quite fierce competition happening here in Singapore. I think there's at least 5 or 6 companies over there, right? Trying to pick that spot. And it doesn't end, right? How about this? So Google office in the northwestern part of Singapore, right, around the Buona Vista area. For those of you familiar with Singapore, they're actually experimenting with driverless cars. So one of these use cases is, okay, if I can get the car to self-drive reliably, basically, I can actually let people work in the car while they're commuting. So even when you are stuck in a jam, it becomes productive time for the individual because they get to work. Right? So it's the same car, but people are using it for different things. Okay, so jobs to be done actually then looks at the underlying job that people are trying to get done when they hire a service or a product. So a lot of time it comes to our surprise, right, that it seems like driving, but the underlying jobs are so different. We see it from the taxis and then the car sharing, and then now there is this, right? It is happening. So I just want to point us back to the famous saying of Theodore Levitt, right? So Harvard Business School professor. He just put it across very simply that people don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill. They want a quarter-inch hole. Okay. So if I can just poke my finger through the wall and make a quarter-inch hole, I don't need a drill, right? I need a hole. Yeah. Okay. So there's also this debate on how deep do we go. Okay. So I can go on to ask, what do you need a hole for, right? I need a hole there because I need to put in a nail and then I want to hang a painting. Okay, I can go on to say that. But then the thing is, in a jobs to be done theory, right, we don't go too deep into the underlying jobs because as we go deeper, we also find that there is a higher segmentation of demands, and then your profit margin will start to thin, right? So we go with the principle of affordance. What do people actually normally hire a drill for? It is that quarter-inch hole, and we don't go too deep. Okay, we stop there. All right, so the car, right? I drive it to attend an appointment. I drive it to run errands. I drive it to do urgent work, okay? I need to get somewhere to do some urgent work, right? So if I can get some work done now, it'd be good. So when we look at the underlying jobs, we start to realize that who we are competing with changes, right? It is a very different from the kind of industry and product line that you're in, okay? So if I need to attend an appointment, and instead of getting there physically in a very hurried manner, I can perhaps make do with online meetings like Zoom and WebEx. Suddenly, these products, they start to become competition, right, with a car, okay? And if I want to run errands, there are services in Singapore like Lala Move. It is a mobile app based. You can actually say that, oh, please pick up this parcel, which is a 3 kilogram, the dimension of the box, and I need it to be moved between 3 to 6 p.m. on this day, right? Can you please send someone to pick it up? You pay a fee, okay? And a lot of time, right, it is cheaper than renting a car to transport it yourself to and fro. And there's also this Honest Bee innovation. Unfortunately, they have kind of closed down a few years ago. So what they do is, oh, if you want to go to the supermarket and pick up a few things, let me do it for you, right? So I'll be your trusted honeybee, right? I will go to the supermarket, I will pick up those goods, and I will come back and I will deliver them to you. You pay me a nominal fee for that service, and I will pass you the receipt, and then you reimburse me everything. So that's an Honest Bee. And also to do that urgent work, right? Not in the car, but also nowadays in Singapore shopping centers, there's this service called Switch. So these are like capsule mobile offices that you see like a phone booth being planted at different shopping centers around Singapore. So sometimes you really just got to work while your loved ones or your friends go shopping, okay? So there's this mobile booth that you can enter, right? You don't have to do this work in a car in that very confined space. You can actually go to a Switch booth to do it. So just helping us to see what is the underlying job for driving a car, we start to see new kinds of competition coming. And what is nice is now we can look at, are some of these things better done in the car? What are the advantages of doing these things in a car compared to this competition? Okay, and it could be us as drivers, we have this understanding of what the different usages of a car, right? And after some time, we realize the inefficiencies or the insufficiencies of doing some of these things in a car. We start to innovate new services, right? So like these ones that have come out. Okay. So how we've been thinking about cars, right? Okay, so when we think about cars, typically, right, we think about attributes. Okay, we think about the typical categories of cars. Right? So we can think of it as a MPV, a 4WD, a normal saloon car, a hatchback, a sports car, and so on, right? And then when we start to place all these attributes, right, then we start to say, hey, on the top right corner, it seems quite empty. Can we try something over there? Okay, but the thing is there a market for it, right? So the thing about JTBD is that it takes us off these product attributes, right? We typically like to use product attributes to segment our demand, right? So by looking at it from a situation point of view, from a jobs point of view, right? We actually tackle what they really care about and we are no longer so much product feature focused, thinking about looking at the competition. They seem to have all these product features. We are not there yet, right? It seems like we have to catch up with those product features, or we have to think about how to make things faster, better, right? So all these are very product features centric, and JTBD actually helps us to think beyond that by examining the underlying job and the situations that created the demand for the job. Okay, so in a nutshell, the summary. Okay, so the situation, when a customer meets a situation, okay, she will hire a product or service to get the job done. And what's interesting is after getting the job done, consciously or subconsciously, okay, she actually forms an impression, okay, after evaluating the job. Okay, how that comes clearly, right, is that when the same situation arises again, okay, will they be actually hiring the same solution for the job, right? So if they don't, then that means they fail very badly according to the customer's criteria. And for companies that want to do something about that, the only way, right, is to actually find out what is the criteria customers use to evaluate the performance of the solution that they hired. Okay. Right. So a good idea then comes from these things. Okay. First, we have the situation. So when we observe what's going on in a customer's life, right, we may uncover many situations that are insightful to us. Okay. But not all of these situations generate good revenue, right? So first, we have to make sure that there's a sizable pool of people who face the situation. So in other words, is there enough customer demand? Okay, so that translates to demand. And then second thing is, when they meet the situation, do they have a strong desire to actually do something about it? Okay, I come from a not so sexy industry, insurance, right? So it's actually not really urgent, right? So what is actually compelling me to quickly take action to buy a life policy, right? There's actually no rush. I can wait for the yearly financial review with my financial representative to do something about that. Right? So the thing is, if I, based on that rhythm, right, there's no strong desire to get the coverage up for each of my customer. Okay, so we have to then understand what are the situations they are facing more regularly, right? And what do they actually want to get done? Okay, that desire. And the last thing is the criteria. So this criteria has got very strong relationship to product features and attributes, okay? Because if we know how they are evaluating what good means for a product or service, then we can pay attention and invest more in building some of these service features or product features, right? In other words, we will not be shooting in the dark. We'll be more informed about how to design good products. Okay, after this slide, right, this is where I try to unpack things a bit more. Okay, so let's get down to the building blocks of jobs to be done. And I will share with you some of the examples as we go along. Right. As we have seen from the transportation examples, a situation provides context. Okay. So the situation of the job, right, in a jobs to be done world, is the fundamental unit of analysis. Okay. And for designers, right, and researchers here joining me, it may be counterintuitive, right, to say that we are not so interested in the customer needs, we are not so interested in the product features. But that is fundamental to jobs to be done. Mainly because needs are very fluid, right? So customer needs different things at different times. Okay. However, customer respond to situations more instinctively. So when I am met with a situation, I want to do something about it now or later, right? So situations actually push people to get things done. Okay. So when the recurrence of the situation is high, it also creates high demand for the service or product that gets the job done. Okay. So that's why understanding situation in a jobs to be done environment is important. So the story here, the 12-minute games, is about a story about a game inventor, right? So one day he actually go to this game company. So by game company, I don't mean online games, I don't mean your Xbox, PS4, and your phone games, right? So these are actually card games, okay? So he actually went to do his speech to this game company, and he failed badly, right? He failed badly. But then the CEO of that game company then asked the game inventor, so don't give up, try again. But can I ask you, what is the reason for you to actually invent this game that you're showing us now? And the game inventor actually say, well, I noticed that many of my friends as well as myself, when I get home, right, and I want to spend quality time with my kids, I actually don't have a lot of time to do that. Most of the time I have 15 minutes FaceTime with them. If I'm lucky, I have about 30 minutes before they finish up their meal and they hit the sack, right, and retire for the night. Yeah, so as a result, that 15 minutes is so precious, and I want to spend this time well with them. So that situation, right, actually gave rise to an idea for the CEO of that games company to then start a series of what he calls the 12-minute game. Okay, well, 12 minutes because 1 minute to take out the cards and 1 minute to keep the game. So and these 12-minute games actually became very popular because it was addressing a situation that was real, that was high in volume. Okay. And also situation compels us to be specific and not abstract, because when we talk about needs, right, needs are always very vague, right? The needs don't actually help people to point to a solution. Okay, so for point of reference, I actually brought up the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? So when I say, for example, I need water, I need shelter, I need clothing, right? I need personal security, right? I need friendship, I need intimacy, I need respect, right? I need freedom. When I say all these needs, right, it is actually very difficult for me to imagine a solution, right? So as much as we like to go out there and understand customers, okay, but when we express it in terms of needs, it is oftentimes too vague for us to effectively pull any solution, to imagine any solution. Right? So situation actually counters that. So we don't need to rely on needs. Situations are more reliable, they are simpler, okay, and they are more steadfast, they don't change, right? Situation as the unit of analysis, they don't change as much. Okay, next, I want to talk about jobs. So when we talk about jobs, right, we are always talking about when people hire a solution to do a job for them, they are trying to make progress, right? They are always trying to increase something or reduce something, increase something good, reduce something bad, okay? So these jobs can be classified into 3 types, okay? We are all very familiar with the functional job, okay? Okay, drive from point A to point B, very functional, okay? Yeah, but emotionally, I also want to feel assured that I can be there on time. So if Google Map tells me that I'm going to get there in 30 minutes time, please no surprise, because if 35 minutes I'll be late, okay? So I want to feel assured that I'll be there on time, okay? Social aspects is how I want to be seen, okay? So, okay, if I were to take taxi or Grab to work every day, right? And then I stop in front of the office and then I get out of the car and people see me, okay, I'm very cool, right? I always have this ability to take taxi, Grab, and all that, okay? So, not just citing an example, not real. but it is to just illustrate how I want to be seen. Okay, so fashion, clothing, perfume, the choice of fashion, all these things are how I want to be seen. It is the social dimension, right? So a lot of times when we examine jobs, the functional jobs are very prevalent, right? But it is actually a lot of times the emotional and the social job that gives companies the edge, okay? Because the way we make customers feel will have a lasting impression on the brand, right? And that makes them want to come back to use our products and services again, okay? So which is why now when we look at jobs, we also take a moment, right, to think more deeply into the emotional and the social aspects of the job, okay? So I did also emphasize at the bottom statement, most innovations, we should also look at emotional and social jobs because they outweigh the practical desires. Okay, next I want to talk about friction. Okay. So this is my story. So it is the story of the supermarket versus the garden, right? So for friends that know me, right, actually I enjoy home cooking, and at home we have a home cooking culture. Okay, we cook daily, and we also try to go more organic for health reasons. That means we try to avoid artificial flavorings that are very much present in condiments and the preservatives and things like that. So to make up for the richness in taste, we actually have to rely on spices, right? And organic spices are actually not easy to get, okay? Sometimes you get into the supermarket, you have to be very opportunistic to be able to secure certain spice, or you go shopping earlier to try to get that spice that you want, right? So if they don't have, you have a few more days to see if the stocks come in. Or you can order online, but they are not necessarily organic. Okay, so the only way to make sure that there is organic spices is that plant my own, right? Plant my own. So this is a plot of land, a communal land near where I stay, where actually residents, right, they have this little 2 meters by 2 meters plot, okay, given to us, and we can plant a lot of things. And yes, I went there to plant a lot of things, right? So I actually have 12 different kind of herbs and spices in my garden. But I'm kind of at one stage very proud of this achievement, right? But the thing is, it is not enough if you look at it. So those of you who are familiar with cooking, right? One look at this 12, you will know that, oh, probably the regular ones are still not there. So I did a rough count. I would easily need about 50 different kind of spices for different types of dishes, right? So I can't possibly plant everything over there. In addition to that, now you look at the walkway, right? It's very clean, right? The tiles and all that, they are like very neat. But if I were to just leave this plot alone for 2 weeks, weeds will start to grow from the little openings of those tiles, right? And I have to go and weed out all these things. Otherwise, the neighbors will complain, the residents committee will come and complain, right? Why are you not taking care of your plot? Yeah. So in order to be a good neighbor, right, I need to just pluck out all these weeds before I can even have the time to tend to my own plantations. Okay, so what I'm highlighting to you is that neither supermarket or my own garden is actually the perfect solution for my job to be done, which is to obtain the organic spices. Okay, so this is where I want to introduce the idea of a friction, okay, in existing solutions. So through this little story, right, you can actually pick up what are some of these pain points I'm actually experiencing while I'm trying to get the job done, right? And if you're able to solve some of my problems with a solution, right, then that idea might take root because currently there isn't a good solution out there for me, right? And there are many people like me who wants to get this done. Okay, so another idea of a friction is to examine what people are making do with. Okay, so they don't have a perfect solution, just make do. right? Yeah. So that example I can give is rent a car sharing, a car from a car sharing service, get on it, okay, send a package over. But on the way back, it's a wasted trip home. Okay. So I'm actually paying for the entire round trip time, right? From point A to B and B back to A. Yeah. And is there a better solution for me? To some people, maybe no. Because of certain criteria, they prefer to deliver this by themselves, right? But there isn't a perfect solution for me now, and I have to make that wasted trip home. So what is it that people are making do based on the solution that they're currently hiring to help them do the job? And if we can address, right, some of these inefficiencies, some of these gaps, we have a solution for this person, and they're more likely to hire this service. Okay, the next example I want to give is IKEA, right? So let's take the scenario of a family with young kids. So this is a play area in IKEA. So some of us who are familiar with IKEA, and some of the outlets have it, they actually have this playroom for children, right? And children can actually go and spend a lot of quality time there playing, right? Why does IKEA want to do this? Because they realize that parents with young children, they have a lot of issues trying to shop to their heart's content, be able to discuss as a couple to make certain decisions as they're looking at certain furnitures and certain setups. But with a kid by the side that's making a lot of noise, it makes it hard for them to have that conversation, right? So IKEA come up with the concept of Småland, right? To help parents take care of their kids so that they can spend quality time shopping. So essentially, in helping them do the job, they have to remove some of the obstacles that they may face. Okay, so a wonderful act by IKEA, and it's very successful. So let's talk about success criteria. Of course, as the saying goes, right, what gets measured gets done. Okay, so if we know what are the criteria customers use to measure the success of this solution, we basically can form a set of metrics, right? And they're always trying to increase certain things or reduce certain things around these criteria attributes. So as a quick example, child has progressed from infant to toddler, and they need a room of her own. And the job of the parent is to provide a room that is conducive for sleep, learn, and play. Okay. So imagine that idea of a Småland, right? Okay, how do I actually know that Småland is working for IKEA? Okay, so first, I define a matrix. So do the parents feel that it is actually easier for them to actually shop around IKEA without their kids? No? And is it easier for them to finish what they set out to do when they come to IKEA, right? So before Småland came, I'm quite sure IKEA brainstormed and came up with a lot of solutions after they found out the insights that kids are an obstacle to parents making decisions on furniture purchase, right? So they actually came up with different prototypes and they were testing it out. And the thing is, without matrix and without agreement as a team on the matrix, it is very difficult to give the solution a direction, right? And we can set some preliminary targets and we can use it for testing. Okay, so the criteria is an essential part of jobs to be done because it creates the matrix. We can predefine some targets, and it allows us a certain basis, right, when we do our testing of our ideas and solutions. Right. My colleagues like to tell me we can't solve world hunger. So that's the statement they give to me whenever I try to do too much. So the thing is, why don't we play to our unfair advantage, right? All the organizations, we have a strong foundation in certain services and products, right? So when we understand the customer's situations, jobs, and criteria, okay, we can actually look at what is that overlap, right, with what we are good at doing, our capabilities, our existing services and products. What do we actually do well, right? And then that intersection is actually the ideal solution, okay, if you ask me. And why? because that idea will be harder for our competitors to replicate, right? Or rather, maybe it will take them a longer time to replicate. By then, we're on to something else. And that idea, right, is something that will also be more on brand, because customers can associate why we are doing this for them now. Okay. So let's also examine this critical point on unfair advantage. Finally, test. Okay, testing, very important. Okay, so I just want to share with you one of these tests we did with Ministry of Manpower in Singapore. This is a picture of a gentleman who is a foreign worker. We are actually trying to solve their problem, right, of a long waiting time. So whenever they come to the Ministry of Manpower Service Center to try to look for a manpower officer because they have certain issues, a lot of them, they have to wait there between 2 to 3 hours time. So if it is just after the weekend or just after public holiday, sometimes the waiting time can be up to 4 hours, right? So in order to alleviate the long waiting time from these customers, as well as not stress out our Ministry of Manpower officers too much, we were experimenting a self-help idea, right? So if they come inside here and then we bring them through a series of self-help options, we are testing whether they can actually have faster access to the knowledge they need, okay, or the answer they need. And then how satisfied would they be to actually leave the service center without even physically meeting a Ministry of Manpower officer. Okay, so that was the idea. So the whole thing about getting the job to be done, right, in terms of the jobs, the situations and the criteria, and the ability to imagine a solution, does not necessarily mean that that solution will succeed. It may still fail, right? For these reasons. First is, will they actually embrace the new solution? Okay, so the situation pushes them to come to Ministry of Manpower, okay? But at the same time, does our prototype actually generate enough benefit to pull them into using it? Okay, so, and also there's a lot of FUDs, fear, uncertainties, and doubts, right? And habits that they may have. So to me, solving a problem means talking to someone. So if that habit is so entrenched, is it easy for them to switch to a new solution we have for them? So there's this FUDs and habits that cause people to escape from the solution. Okay, so we can't conclude after having all the jobs to be done insights, we still need to test the solution we have. All right, so that sums up my talk. So this is a quick summary of what I spoke about. So use JTBD when we are looking for service or product innovations that are driven by what customers truly desire. Okay, so my experience is that doing JTBD, right, it also means that we need to have the appetite for innovation. So that means we need to have a good sponsorship within the organization. If we are not ready to invest in making significant changes to a service, right, and we are only making tactical changes and tactical improvements based on customer feedback, and then we are just fine-tuning things, optimizing things, then jobs to be done may not be a good tool to deploy for these situations, right? I find JTBD works well when we have the ability to imagine what the service would be like. Okay, that's the time where JTBD thrives. So 6 concepts: go for the underlying jobs, be aware of the situations that cause the demand for the job, look at the friction and workarounds customers have when hiring the existing solutions to get the job done. What is the success criteria they use to evaluate the performance of a job? What are the unfair advantage that you have as an organization to shape the solution in a certain way that is according to your strengths and according to what customer desires according to the JTBD. And lastly, prototype and test. Okay, With that, I'd like to take a pause because that's the last slide I have and the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take your questions.
Thanks, Simon. Very interesting. Seriously, this I did not know all these details, so it's very interesting for me. Like, made me think also how to structure research in a little bit different way sometimes. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for this. Let me see if there's any questions from anyone. As of now, I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anyone wants to ask any questions, kindly unmute and please ask any questions to Simon so that he can reply to you.
Yeah, keep it coming.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, yeah, some of the qualitative you know, things which we do also, like projective techniques, and also the way we map needs and motivations is also related somewhat to this. And one of them mentions about jobs to be done and value proposition design are related concepts that often work in tandem. They both aim to understand customer needs, desires, and improve product innovation development. And how do you approach this goal from a slightly different angle when coming up with solutions or ideas? So that's the question from ND. Can I get your full name?
There's a question coming in, anonymous question, doesn't want to be mentioned.
Okay.
The question is, in the world of consumer products like detergent, water, beverages, etc., does this JTBD have a similar relevance, Simon?
Yeah. So maybe I take that question from you first, Haris. Okay. Yeah. Yes. It certainly have relevance, right? Also in the F&B sector. So, for instance, recently, our team, we just went for a team bonding activity, right? And it is F&B related. So of all the things, we actually gathered to eat durians. Right, because why we did that is because instead of going to a very nice restaurant and all that, yes, some of our colleagues love durians, but some of them really hate durian. Right? It's just like terrible. But the thing is, there is this emotional connection, right, to actually understand cultures, why certain people like the durian and some don't like, and then those that don't like, can we actually dare them to actually take up the durian? So there is this social job and an emotional job that we're trying to get done just by eating durian together, right? Another example I can think of is so the thing is the element of fun in drinks, right? So the thing is we know alcohol, we go and consume alcohol and just to lighten the mood and have some fun with friends, right? So there is actually a group of people who choose not to drink alcohol whenever they visit a bar or a party area. So the thing is how can the restaurants, right, still help these customers enjoy the evening together with their friends? Okay, so that's where the invention of the mocktails came, right? So they actually named them with very cool and funky names, just like these alcoholic cocktails. And they actually put in that freeze, right, to give it some delight in the drinking and the flavors that goes with it. So the invention of the mocktail, is actually an innovation that come to enable this social job and the emotional job to be done when people are together with friends. So I do see that there's a lot of opportunities in the F&B. Yeah. So the key thing is to understand the underlying jobs that people are trying to get done. So they are hiring alcohol to have a good time, but if the key thing is to have a good time and quality time with our friends and families, then what is it that we can do in that setting? Okay. Okay, so I'm trying to digest that question on the value proposition design or related concepts that often work in tandem. They both aim to understand customer needs, desires, and improve product innovation development. Though they are not the same thing, how do you approach this goal from slightly different angles when coming up with solutions or ideas? Okay, so yes, I do agree that let's say the value proposition canvas, right? I suppose we're talking about that. In fact, in one of my workshops where we are brainstorming, right, how we could actually improve the relevance of our Great Eastern reward system for our customers. In that project, I actually marry the value proposition method together with jobs to be done, because like you said, there's a lot of overlaps, there's a lot of relevance. Okay, but what's important to then distinguish, right, is the jobs is the unit of analysis, right? And a lot of the time when we start to look at the value proposition canvas, we look at what are the customer pains and what is the gains that they're looking at. We can interpret it in terms of that jobs to be done language, okay? Or we can also see in terms of the very tactical things like what are the kind of pains they're having with interacting with the app, and then the interactions and things like that. Okay, so if it gets to that minute level, then it doesn't work that well, because JTBD is something that we are trying to look at what are the customers' desires, right? What are the kind of progress they're trying to make? So in a way, it is looking at value creation at a higher level. Okay, so if you're able to balance it at that level, right? It's okay to actually mix value proposition together with JTBD. Yeah, which I've done so myself. Okay. Okay.
I also put in a last question, which is about somebody put in a question about UI UX testing that they have, and how that one of the functions which they designed was not what human needs. So of course that
Okay.
is.
You tell the product manager. Okay. This is where metrics is really important. I think for a start, we need to agree on what are the metrics before we go out for a test. Because if the product manager did not agree with what constitute a good product in the first place, what are the success metrics, and you get a bunch of results when you come back, you do not have a common basis to explain that the solution did not work. Okay, so get the metrics established before a test is done. That would be my approach for this.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon. We are already 2 minutes over. I think you also are in a hurry.
I'm getting chased out from the room.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, yeah. So, okay, fine.
You guys have been a wonderful audience. So nice to have you. Thanks again, Sanchita, for having me. Thanks, Haris, for putting this together. Yeah.
Thank
you guys. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Bye.